It's 8 p.m. here in Madrid, Spain, and yeah, so excited for this event in honor of International Women's Day. Should we get started, Cepee?
I think we should. Let's hop in. I'm so excited to talk to our panel, so let's get started.
Yes, so officially welcome to CMX Connect Madrid. We are the hosts here, going virtual since March 2020. It's been a year. It's officially a year since we've been going virtual. We did have one in-person event in the summer because we just couldn't bear being apart for much longer. I'm Valentina. I am from the UK, but I'm now based here in Madrid, Spain. I'm a community builder. Many of you will know me from my Out Madrid and Eat in Madrid. I love food, hence the question. It's the first thing that comes to my mind. I also community manage for CMX and also for Disciple Media. Cepee?
Yes, lovely. Hi, everyone. Cepee rhymes with Peppy from Houston, Texas. Living in Madrid the last 5 years. Actually just moved to Malaga, Spain a few months ago and in Madrid at the moment. So coming to you live from Madrid again. It's great to be back. Many of you know me from the Madrid Blogger Network, which is my first community that I started. And also She Hit Refresh, my second community, and my business helping women age 30 and over change their life through travel. So lovely to be here. Yes, keep letting us know in the comments where you're coming from, where you're tuning in from. And I see a lot of love for Houston and Malaga. Thanks, guys. Throwing it back to you, Valentina.
Yes, and don't forget to let us know what you last ate. That was the kind of icebreaker question. So let us know if you can remember. So a little bit about CMX Connect, the program, especially if it's your first time here. If it's your first time to any CMX Connect event, let us also know in the chat as well. We can ask lots of questions throughout our event. So CMX Connect is a program by CMX powered by Bevy. This platform that we're using to host this event is the Bevy virtual platform. And the CMX Connect program is all over the world. In fact, it's in about 60 different cities in the world. So make sure you check to see if you're joining us from a different city, whether they have one in your city. And if you would like to start your own chapter, you could also do that as well. If you go to events.cmxhub.com, you'll see all the events. There's so many virtual events and the information there of how you can sign up to be a Connect host, just like me and Cepee. So the aim of these events, there's really three kind of aims. The first thing is to get an idea or actionable strategy that you can implement into your current communities that you're managing, or maybe you have an idea for a community. We also want to advocate for the community industry. I mean, the last year has just kind of blown the industry out of the water, and we want to continue doing that. And also to meet a friend. I cannot tell you how great it has been to connect with community professionals all around the world, because sometimes it feels like we are doing it by ourselves, and we're really not. There's thousands of us. So please connect with each other, follow each other on Instagram, Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. Feel free to put your links in the chat so that we can all connect after this as well. Here in Madrid, we usually meet once a month. It's usually on the first or second Wednesday. This month we're doing it on the third Wednesday. We thought we'd change it up a bit. And each month we have a different topic. We've had all sorts. We've had monetization, we've had engagement. We also do parties as well to celebrate little milestones in our community. So we have a lot going on, and you can check out all those events on the events page that I mentioned, and I'll share it in the chat later as well. I have a big announcement before we move on. For those of you that may have not seen my posts, if you're following me on Twitter or LinkedIn, today CMX officially announced CMX Spark, which is a European, Middle Eastern and African catered community conference. So yes, you heard me right. CMX is taking a little plane over to us, finally, where we're going to be doing a whole day dedicated to the EMEA region and the amazing community professionals that are working in this region. And it's a little bit like if you've been to a CMX summit, but it's catered to our time zone. So it's going to be from Central European time, 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. And there's so much going on. I will also share all the links to that in the chat. But I'm really excited for it. Me and Cepee are going to be there, so we hope that you can join us. And it's really open to anyone in the world. You just might have to get up a little bit early if you're based in the US. That is it from me. Cepee, do you want to tell us what we're doing tonight?
Yes, all right. So let's get started. Tonight's agenda, we're going to start off with an incredible panel, and we're going to be talking about overcoming imposter syndrome. So we have Erica Moss, Anika Lee Niels, Lauren Bonheim. Lauren, you're going to have to correct me if I said your name wrong. Margarita as well. Margarita Scorvisa. You guys can correct me when you're on camera. So we're going to do about 30-minute panel with them, and then we're going to open it up to you guys for a Q&A session. We'll do the Q&A for about 10 to 15 minutes max, and then Valentina will be letting us know what to expect next. All right? So I think with that, we can get started. Let's get our panelists up, and we will hop into today's discussion, which, as Valentina said, we're really excited to cover this topic, just to continue to honor International Women's Day, International Women's History Month. I think this is a really important topic for women in general, but today we'll be talking about women who are in community. Hello, Anika Lee, so good to see you.
Yes.
So happy to have you here. Hello, Erica, nice to meet you.
Hello.
And we're getting Lauren on, and Margarita. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies, look at this panel. Love it. All right. We have a lot of ground to cover. So I think we're just going to start from the beginning. Those that I mispronounce your name, please do correct me. And I should probably let everyone know who's watching. Also, I always forget to let the audience know. My name is Cepee, rhymes with Peppy. So in case if you need that correct. So let's just hop into it. I would love everyone to introduce themselves and let us know a little bit more about your community. And how about we start with Erica? You go first.
Awesome. No pressure whatsoever. I'm Erica Moss. I am based in New York, and I'm coming at you from Atlassian. And you may not know Atlassian as a company, but you've probably used one or more of our tools: Confluence, Bitbucket, Trello, all of those goodies. And we have a very vibrant community of humans who love using those tools. So we have a very robust online community with millions of members who share best practices. And then we have sort of the event side of the house where folks get together, these days virtually, to talk about their love of Atlassian products.
Fabulous. Love it. Yeah, I'm a big Trello user. I'm sure a lot of people out there are as well.
Yeah.
Margarita, if you want to go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Margherita. I'm originally from Italy, but I'm based in Berlin since 2015. And I run a business called Fairforce. I am a community consultant or strategist, depending on client's need. And I'm also working as a feminist and impact coach. So I blend the two things together, helping people, organizations, women, and people from underrepresented categories and groups to strengthen their agency and find, strength in the community settings, and also helping organization to create a space, safe, vulnerable space for people to feel better. And yeah, this is pretty much from my side.
Well, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you here. Anika Lee, let's turn it to you. Let us know a little bit about yourself and about your community.
All right. Hi, guys. My name is Anika Lee Niels, originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I've been here in Spain for the last 4 years, lived in Madrid for 3 years. Then I moved down south to Murcia, chasing the sun and some more time for myself, more time to dedicate to my community, which is called the Caribbean Millennial. And it's actually a community around like the self-discovery and self-reinvention journey of people across the Caribbean diaspora, and helping them to create more moments of fulfillment in their everyday lives. So yeah.
Fabulous. Love it. Thank you so much for joining us. And last but not least, Lauren, turning it to you. Let us know about yourself and your community and how to pronounce your last name. I feel like I butchered it. Oh, wait, you're on mute.
There, am I in now?
We got
I don't know if it's my wife or anyone else, but let me know if you guys can hear me. But I'm Lauren. Last name is Bonheim. It's German, so no worries. No one ever pronounces it right. And so I am originally from New York. I have been living abroad for around 6 years now, so kind of on and off in Spain. I've lived in Chile as well, Liechtenstein, which if you don't know where it is, don't worry, I didn't either until I moved there. You can look it up on a map. And so I'm a transformational coach that helps ambitious women pursue big dreams. So a lot of the times these dreams have to do with straying from the conventional path. So things like moving abroad, traveling long-term, transitioning to location independence. And my community is mostly on Instagram right now, but I also have a Facebook group for expat women to support each other. And I'm actually hoping to launch a group coaching program later this year. So I mostly work one-on-one, but I've realized that community is so important when doing things like this. And so, yeah, hoping to be able to bring together like-minded women in that way as well.
Fabulous. Thanks for joining us. What an impressive panel here. So we are going to jump into it. Again, today's topic is all about overcoming imposter syndrome. And we're going to talk about how to elevate your voice and harness your power as a woman in community. And so let's just start off, because I know this is true for, I think, everybody, even if people don't want to admit it. When you talk to people, I know that we all have this little voice in our heads, you know, that comes in, that little like gremlin, right? That tells us sometimes that we're not good enough. We're not ready. Who do we think we are, especially when we have to step into a space of growth? And I'm curious to hear from you guys if you've ever personally experienced imposter syndrome and how you addressed it. I'm going to ask this question to Lauren and then Margarita.
Okay, I think I'm off mute. I don't know why the mute button is so hard on here. But yes, I have definitely dealt with that before. The negative little like nagging voice, the way I like to deal with it is I named her. So I call her like nagging Nancy or negative Nancy. I call it like naming my inner critic. And so what that kind of helps with is separating her from me. So, you know, like when those negative thoughts start to come in, I like to just be like, you know what, Nancy, like, thanks for stopping by, but I'm not having it today, and kind of switch. It helps me kind of become aware when that's starting to happen so I can shift my mindset, shift to more positive, empowering thoughts. And instead of asking myself, like, who do I think I am? Why do I think I can do this? Changing it to, you know what, like, Nancy, not today, I can do this, and reminding myself of why.
Love it. Thank you. And Margarita, have you experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how do you address it when it comes up?
Yes. So yeah, I've only recently started to work as a freelancer for clients. I've done it before more informally and exclusively with people that I felt very comfortable with. And now I've just started to work with B2B clients. And it was quite of a shock, especially for someone that is very much like community oriented, that really like to be in this collaborative environment. And so I personally believe that imposter syndrome falls under the spectrum of perfectionism, and I work a lot with perfectionism with my clients, and also trying to address it as a systemic and structural issue. So we live in a perfectionism-driven world, especially in the business context, where we're like kind of used to see things happening one way only. Like there is one right way to do things and all the other things are wrong. So we constantly chase standards that are more and more unrealistic to achieve. So what I do for myself is always like remind myself about it, that we're not supposed to show up as a robot, but we can be both unprepared and good. We can be both successful and on our journey to grow and learn. And that is very human things. So for me, it's a lot about keeping it real for myself, but also educating my clients and the people that I work with about it to bring them on the same page and, you know, kind of challenge this systemic structure that it's oppressive at the end of the day.
Definitely, definitely. I love what you said there. And I just want to encourage our community, because I'm sure a lot of this is resonating with you, and I see it in the comments here. Also, if you have any questions, just want to remind anybody, if you have questions, we'll take them at the end. So please drop them in the Q&A area. You'll see in the chat box, if you go to the top, you'll see Q&A, drop your questions there. So kind of continuing on this theme of perfectionism, because I think you really hit on something there. I think, you know, definitely if we're working in a business corporate environment, but also as freelancers, it can be hard to admit to ourselves that, you know, we have imposter syndrome, and it can be even more terrifying to admit to those people, you know, whether it's a boss, a mentor, even our friends, that we're feeling like we're inadequate or that imposter syndrome is taking over. So I'm curious to hear, and I'd love to hear from Erica and Anika Lee, rather than keeping like this feeling of imposter syndrome to yourself, have you ever talked to someone, whether it be a colleague, a boss, or a mentor, about your imposter syndrome, and how did that conversation go? Anika Lee, if you want to go first.
Sure. Yeah, so I was just thinking to myself that, so for me, when I started off on my own personal like self-discovery journey in Madrid and working with my own coach, I was just, one of the things that I had to work on was talking to people about things. And one of those things is like, you know, imposter syndrome, like the way that I was showing up, not being in alignment with who I wanted to be. And so one of the things that I focused on was like vulnerability is strength. And I think that it's extremely important, and like one of the pillars of just like my style as a coach, just like to show up authentically and vulnerably and just share what you're experiencing. And the value in that for me has been like, you know, in conversations with friends, in conversations with mentors, just seeing how they can also see themselves in my experiences. And I think a lot of the times with something like imposter syndrome, where you belittle yourself, where you feel small, where you feel like you're not enough, you think it's an isolated experience, like nobody else talks to themselves this way, nobody else has these experiences. But when we have these conversations like we're having tonight, you realize, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not broken, and there are ways to go about, you know, improving my relationship with myself. I don't want to use the word fixing because you're not broken. Improving your relationship with yourself and improving the way that you are experiencing certain situations. So the conversations are like, you know, opening up about it is super important, especially because when you don't talk about the things that you're experiencing, it just kind of like snowballs into other things. So like if you can pinpoint, like Margarita pinpoints her imposter syndrome as perfectionism, mine is also, but I know for some other people it might be like showing up as the expert or not being able to ask for help, which is also something that I struggle with. So once you're able to like break down what your imposter syndrome looks like, and, you know, your thought processes, like the thoughts that come up for you when you feel like an imposter, and also the, just like, you know, the behaviors that you exhibit, and you're able to like, you know, share that with others, you get feedback, you're able to reflect, and you're able to put things in place to you know, move forward. It's all about like learning through it. Yeah.
Definitely. I love that. Yes, Erica, I'd love to hear from you. If you have ever talked to a colleague or a boss or someone about your imposter syndrome and how that conversation went.
Yeah, this is all like too real for me, y'all. I think community is such a unique industry because I think it can sometimes exacerbate imposter syndrome, right? Because we are all coming from different industries, different experiences, different backgrounds. My background was journalism. And as I sort of like fell into the community space, I sort of convinced myself that I would have ultimately need like a marketing degree or some official like stamp of approval to be able to like speak intelligently, you know, about community building and whatnot. I have, of course, come to understand that that is not the case, but those are the things that sort of go through your head. And, you know, I'm very fortunate to work on a team of all women. We have about 10 of us on the Atlassian community team, and they've really created a safe space to sort of bring those authentic feelings to the table. And I find myself being very candid with my direct manager sort of about what I need and what she can do to sort of help me suppress some of these feelings of imposter syndrome. I find that often it's exacerbated if I have too much on my plate. And when that happens, I start thinking like, oh, you know, if only I was stronger or more knowledgeable, like maybe I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed right now. So like telling her that I need her to help, you know, be protective of my time, I think is really important. And then in tandem with that, my colleague, Cassie Mays, who I think is on the call, we have weekly one-on-ones, and she's kind of my accountability partner. So we have these like, you know, set discussions where we come to the table and say, hey, I'm really struggling this week, you know, with X, Y, and Z, you know, and you can sort of commiserate in that way and, you know, lift each other up. And it's so important to note that imposter syndrome really does thrive in isolation. It makes you believe that you are the only one experiencing this, you know, or have ever experienced this. But much like shame and some of those other weird feelings to light, that's when you can really start to combat them.
Love it. Definitely, definitely. And yeah, when you talk about them, especially if you're talking to a mentor or a boss, you know, someone who sees your work and understands what you're doing, they can give you that feedback and help put things in perspective, because sometimes we can just blow things out of proportion because we can let our feelings take over of what the reality actually is. And so I recently opened up to a boss of mine where I was feeling insecure or having imposter syndrome, and just to hear their feedback of like, you know, you're new at this, it takes time, what you're feeling is normal. I'm glad that you brought this up. You're doing great. All of those things just helped me kind of alleviate the anxiety that I was feeling and just feeling like I wasn't good enough for what I was doing. So great answers, lady. Thank you so much, ladies, for offering your insight on that. I want to shift a little bit to talking about elevating our voices. So as women, you know, we know that we don't always step up or speak up when we should. And it's so important to do that. And I'm interested to hear why you think it's important for us as women to really elevate our voices, especially as community builders. And I'm going to address this question to Margarita and Lauren.
Thank you. Okay, now I could just speak forever, so I will just try to keep it short and clear, but it's probably a very basic answer here. Like, even though we live in a time where we might get the impression that women are getting some more like equality and equity, things are changing, but we need to still remember that women and also in their diverse background, in their experience of womanhood, so we're not all the same, we're not women all in the same way, but we are still part of underrepresented and often marginalized category, living in a very patriarchal system. And so it is still relevant and important that women, first of all, come together as a community, lift each other up, and remember to each other that their voice matters. Their voices have a space and an impact, and that whatever comes out from their project, from their initiatives, has this big potential to create a difference in the world. And it sounds a bit rhetorical, but working specifically with women, I can totally tell you that for someone that feels more empowered to do so, it might be obvious, but there are so many women who don't even consider the option to even just reply to a public comment in a public space. And so as a community builder, for me, my role is not much about telling other women how they should speak up or speak their voice, but it's really to facilitate this space and inspire other women, even simply to share their experience with others. So I think community builders, especially women community builders, who have maybe already this sense of agency to create a space, can really lead by example and create a solid and safe ground for them to start in a smaller environment and find the strength, the inspiration, but also their own voice. I mean, they have their voice already. They probably just need to understand what is the best way for them to bring it out and trust their authentic self and be like, whatever you want to say it. It's not going to be not intelligent. It's not going to be no smart. It's not going to be, you know, rhetorical. It's going to be important. So just, yeah, that.
Thank you so much. Lauren, anything you have to add as, you know, why it's important for us as women to elevate our voices, especially in community?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was beautifully said. And I like very much agree with everything that Margarita just shared. I guess I'll just add that as women and really any people, like our voices are our power. And things can't change unless we speak up, you know, and women in general, like we've come a long way, but we wouldn't be where we are today if people in the past hadn't spoken up about it, if women in the past hadn't, you know, advocated for equality and for women to be in places of power. And so I really feel that as women today, it's almost our responsibility as well, or not almost, it is our responsibility to like keep paving that path for women of the future. And I mean, we have come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. And if we don't speak up, things can't change. So, you know, it can be scary. And that's like where imposter syndrome comes in, because especially if you have an idea that isn't like widely accepted, or if you believe in something that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about, it can be scary to talk about it. But once we say something, we often find that we're not the only ones that feel that way, and that there are a lot of people that can identify with it. And so, yeah, as like community builders, being in that leadership position, also, even when we feel uncomfortable or when we're scared, like really stepping into that role of paving the path for other people. And again, like allowing them to know that they're safe and supported, and that their opinions, their beliefs matter, and that they can share, that they have a safe place to do so.
Definitely. I love that. I love that. And how many communities have been built on people elevating their voices and speaking up? I know my community, She Here Refresh, was, I'm like, where is the information for women over 30 who want to move abroad and live the unconventional life? And then you find out you're not the only one that has that crazy idea. So definitely when you speak up, you find your people also. And I love what Lauren said, how it can be terrifying though to elevate your voice. And that's what my next question is about, is if you can share, this is going to be addressed to Erica and Anika Lee. Can you share one specific instance where you had to step into your power and be bold for your community? You know, maybe you had to talk about a difficult or contentious topic. Maybe you're responding to criticism in the group, or maybe you just messed up and had to, you know, own up to that in front of everybody. I'd like to know about that one instance that you had, and how did it feel to speak up, and how did your community respond? So Erica, if you want to go first.
Yeah. The interesting thing about imposter syndrome is that it sometimes sneaks up when you are entering new territory or doing something that you don't necessarily like want to do. And so a recent example of that was, we have, as sort of a subset of the Atlassian community, we have an ambassador program with about 400 humans in it who answer questions, write articles. They're really like our champions, our brand ambassadors. But sometimes we bring folks into that fold and they don't work out. And so we had an example of someone who was sort of creating a toxic environment. The other leaders were noticing this, and they were like messaging us being like, something feels weird here. And as a community builder, the last thing I want to do is to kick someone out of a program or provide, you know, less than, you know, ideal feedback to someone. So how I combat that imposter syndrome, or those feelings of like, can you really step up and like, you know, grit your teeth and do this, is to just gather information. So I did a lot of that. I talked to a lot of internal stakeholders, you know, making sure that we were making the right decisions so that I could sort of stand firm in what we were saying and feel good about that decision moving forward, even though it wasn't, you know, sort of an ideal situation. So we ultimately, you know, had to ask that particular person to leave. And we were very candid and open with the leader cohort at large, being like, we know that folks have noticed, you know, that this has been happening. This is how we've addressed it. It isn't a decision that we made overnight. It was a decision backed by, you know, data and facts and, you know, things that were happening that we couldn't ignore. And so I think being super transparent, being super candid with them, and then, like I said, gathering all the data I needed to like stand firm in that decision gave us the best possible outcome.
Wow. I'm interested to hear if anyone watching out there has had a similar instance. You had to remove someone from a program or community where you had to really do something, yeah, tough like that, that felt difficult, but you knew was the right thing to do. Yes, I'd love to hear from you. Any tough conversations you've had to have with your community? How did it feel to speak up and own that space? And how did your community respond?
So I think mine is really along the lines of just like the entire idea from my community, because I know it was more about travel focused because I live abroad, so obvious, right? But when I had originally come up with the idea for the Career Millennial, it was always around like this process of unlearning, redefining, and becoming who you really are at your core. And for a long time, I just like let travel kind of like mask that. And so for like 2 years. So 2 years of that kind of content within the community. And then there's this like, you know, shift into a different kind of context. And that was scary, even though that was the thing that I wanted to do. And it really ties into like elevating your voice, right? Because this is the thing that led me to creating this space. This is what I wanted to connect people on. And so if I'm not showing up and being authentic and being vulnerable in that space on this issue, then how can I expect them to go through the same process, you know? So yeah, being able to do that and just like worrying about, well, how is this going to be received? Because, you know, we come from a society in the Caribbean that's very like one path and no detours. And I've noticed for myself at a young age that just wasn't my vibe. And so I was like, I can't be the only one. And I was looking around at my peers and I noticed that they were starting to feel like a little bit rocky on their one path that was determined for them. And I was like, so this is the thing. And, you know, just being able to show up, you know, actively in the community and just like share what I was going through and my insights into, you know, this entire process. And just seeing the way that people responded to it and noticing that, okay, well, this is a thing. And so that's where the community is around now. And yeah, so it's really around for me, just like leaning more into my own voice and shedding the idea that this is not valid. I am the only person experiencing it and nobody cares. All different forms of imposter syndrome, right? Cepee, you're on mute.
For letting me know. I like rarely use mute, but there's been some ambulances. So I'm like, let me use it, but I feel like I'm going to forget. So I did. So I just want to thank you so much, Anika Lee. Was just wanted to encourage our audience out there. If you have questions for our panelists, please drop them in the Q&A box. We'll be going to Q&A probably in about 7 minutes, but we're going to keep it going here. Have another question on, harnessing our power, elevating our voices. You know, I really think it's a conscious act, especially as women. We have to lean in, we have to get uncomfortable, and we have to show up for ourselves. And part of this, you know, of it being a conscious act is we have to be deliberate about overcoming our imposter syndrome, especially when we're going to speak, right? So I often prepare before I do any kind of speaking. And I'm sure many people do that before meetings, before client calls. You know, there's a lot of work you're doing in the background to make sure that you feel confident in elevating your voice. So would love to hear from Erica and Lauren. What is the work that you do behind the scenes to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success, to speak up and to shine when you need to? Lauren, maybe you want to go first.
So kind of going off of what you said, Cepee, practicing and preparing when I have something I want to speak about is huge for me. You know, I'm originally from the Northeast in the US. We are brought up to be very like perfectionist, competitive mindset. I am like a recovering, very hard on myself type person as well. Like that perfectionism was so ingrained in me growing up of like needing to be the best at everything. And so while I do now prepare and practice and, you know, write down like my message, what I want to say, what I want to get across to make sure that I'm doing it in a way that's effective, a big part of it for me has also just been reminding myself that like it's okay to not be perfect and that perfect is an unrealistic expectation. I mean, no matter how hard I try, no matter how many times I prepare, it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. That's what makes me human, and that's also a huge part of what I try to promote within my community as well, is like imperfect action, you know? So not waiting for something to be perfect, not waiting to be like the expert or have, you know, the 12 certifications. Like, you know what you're talking about, and everyone has a message to share. We all have something to contribute. And yeah, so kind of like imperfect action and just reminding myself that it doesn't need to be perfect to get started. Just show up, keep going, and you improve, you know, every time that you do that. Oops, I think Cepee might be frozen. I'm not sure. But I know, Erica, you were next anyway.
Yeah.
I think for that.
I'll jump in. I know that anytime I'm getting ready to like give on a panel like with these lovely ladies today, I always listen to the Hamilton cast album before I before I get started, because it's such it amps me up so much. Maybe that doesn't work for everyone, but that's one of my pro tips. But I always try to approach these different opportunities as a conversation, right? Because if I build it up in my head as this like giant keynote where like everyone's watching, and I just get in my own head about it. So I try to approach everything as if it's just a conversation, you know, with my people. And then I think a way to combat some of the like big, scary, like I have to give a talk, I have to present at a client meeting things, is to get more comfortable in the day-to-day, sharing your wins and advocating for yourself. So for example, I keep a running list of all of my accolades, and that runs the gamut from like nice things people have said to me in Slack to, you know, things that my leaders have said to me about how helpful I have been, or some day that I turned around for them, like just those little things, so that I can sort of, you know, look at those if I'm having a bad day. I highly recommend that. And then we at Atlassian actually do a community town hall once a month, where like everyone who touches community kind of gets on the phone and shares different wins or different projects they're working on. And I try to go out of my way to always bring something to that conversation, even if I think it's like insignificant or like, nobody's really gonna care about that. That was something that only I was excited about. I try to like brush that stuff aside and say like, no, I'm gonna like bring something to the table here as a reminder that I do good work. And I think that makes all the difference.
Love it. Love it. I know I dropped off for a minute, so thank you guys for continuing without me. You guys got this. I want to move to our next question here, which is talking about, you know, when you haven't spoken up, or maybe when anyone can chime in here. Have you ever let an opportunity pass you up because you were too scared to embrace it? Or have you ever been, you know, have you ever stayed silent because you were too afraid to speak up? If you can think of one time when that happened that you want to share with us, feel free to hop off mute and share with us. Ooh, I know I'm asking something scary here. It's hard to admit these things. Anybody?
I'll jump in. Oh, sorry. No, I jumped in. I'll make it quick. But yeah, so, you know, is in digital marketing, and I had a travel, well, I still have a travel blog, but I was, you know, travel blogging a lot. And I always knew that I wanted to help other people pursue big dreams and stray from the conventional path and all this jazz. But anyway, long story short, I knew I wanted to become a coach for a really long time, actually a few years, but I kept holding myself back from it because I was like, you know, who am I to jump into this? I've been working in marketing for the past 5 years. You know, my entire community is focused around my travel blog and like travel guides and this and that. How am I going to pivot and work on kind of, you know, it was spoken about before, but like the travel blog was actually masking something deeper, which was, you know, becoming who I was meant to be and a journey of self-discovery. And that's really what it was all about for me all along. And I was like, how do I pick from that and, you know, into something where I'm helping other women do this as well? And I really, I mean, I eventually got there. I'm now coaching, but it took me a really long time to like fight through that imposter syndrome to get certified, to like take the steps to actually do it and make myself feel comfortable with it. And I mean, you know, no regrets, but had I fought through this sooner, like maybe I would have been able to pivot a bit, you know, if I had known about imposter syndrome back then.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else? Any time when you were too fearful to embrace something big or too afraid to speak up? And if not, it's okay. I'm not going to force anyone to share their secrets with us.
Like literally the same as Lauren. Literally. Like literally, like we live the same life. I don't know what that's about. And it seems to be a common thread. Maybe behind every travel blog is a coach and waiting.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. All right. So I'd love to hear from Margarita. What are some resources you've tapped into to help you elevate your voice as a community builder?
That's a very interesting question. The first community I built, it was a community for women writers here in Berlin. And it was my very first journey of building a community, but also stepping into some sort of entrepreneurial journey. And I have to say that when I started, I really started out of my own personal need to reconnect with two things that were very important to me, community women and writing. So the resources that I always tapped into when I decided to build community were always like my needs. So I was always feeling I was missing something, and I was thinking perhaps other people may also miss the same thing. So what is something that I can transform, like, you know, from a place of a lack or something that I'm missing, something that I'm struggling with, and something that can actually be purposeful and helpful for others. So that was always my way to go, and always like a way to combine my personal kind of like, yeah, my personal challenge with finding a way to make it meaningful for others as well. More on a technical side, I would say that being able to access social media platforms was always a big push for me. I've been always comfortable in sharing. I'm a communicator. I'm a writer. Imposter syndrome in some ways. Like, I do writing. I love writing. And so social media platforms have always helped me connect with other people, other women, express myself, and especially about like being authentic and express my wild side, and having someone resonating with that was really helpful in how I received an actual like feedback from outside, and helped me just move towards this experience of community building. So I'm really grateful for being born in the social media era, even though it's challenging sometimes, can be tricky, but I'm like, hey.
No, thank you so much. That's what I say too. I mean, that's where a lot of us have found community, especially this last year without, online platforms. There are people who wouldn't have found their people who wouldn't have felt connected when we were so isolated. Like online platforms, social media, yes, there are negatives to it, but there's so many positive benefits that I'm sure all of us have benefited from. Just looking at the Q&A box here, there are so many questions coming in. So I think I'm going to wrap up our panel so we can get to the Q&A, but I'm just going to ask one question to all of you, and we'll keep this really bite-sized. What is one piece of advice you would give to women in community who are struggling with imposter syndrome and speaking up? We'll keep it bite-sized because we're going to hop to the Q&A. So maybe Lauren, do you want to start?
Yeah, sorry, I'm really struggling with this mute button here. But yeah, my one piece of advice, I guess, would just be everyone has to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere, and imperfect action is better than inaction. So, imposter, we can overcome it through taking actions and getting there, but you have to start, and taking the first step is always where you need to start.
Fabulous. Thank you. Anika Lee, your bite-sized tip.
Yeah, I love that from Lauren. Progress over perfection for me. That was like my mantra last year, and that just launched me into so many things. Starting my podcast, doing coach training, just pivoting my entire community. So yeah, progress over perfection, and also really identifying what does imposter syndrome look like for you, and just getting keen and curious about what that is like, and how you can take action in that way to overcome it. Yeah.
Fabulous. Love it. Erica, what's your one bite-sized tip for women struggling with imposter syndrome?
I gotta say, find an accountability partner. Keep a running doc of your wins and your accolades that you can refer to later. And then finally, find a community that can support you. CMX is a great example of that. Community Club is a great example of that. Just find your people that you can sort of bounce ideas off of and feel a little less alone.
Yes, love it. And maybe Valentina, maybe you can share the article that Erica wrote, because I was looking at that, and I think I'm going to do the Trello board that you mentioned in there with an accountability partner. So guys, if you want to see what I'm talking about, read Erica's article there. And Margarita, what is your one bite-sized tip for women who are struggling with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so first of all, ask your people to list all the things that you're good at and start from there. Asking people that you like and you love and that love you back to give you an overview about what do they think you can help with. And the second is prioritize joy. This thing about starting things, starting communities, starting project really need to come out from a place of passion, happiness, and joy. So do it because you love it and not because you have to do it, and don't get hold back because you're scared. Do it because it gives you joy, and this is the most important part.
Fabulous. Thank you. All right, we're going to hop into Q&A. Thank you so much for those watching. You guys got so many questions here. So we are going to move through as many as we can. We have about 10 minutes left, but I'm going to leave some room for Valentina to tell us what's next. So let's go through these questions. The first one is from Deb, and I'm going to direct this to Erica. She says, do you have a way to practice getting out to be seen and heard? And she says, also, can you share ideas for us as women to support each other?
Getting out to be seen and heard. This is kind of an interesting question because I, as of late, have found myself doing a lot of these panels, doing a lot of these appearances. And, I guess that happens slowly over time. And that's why I'm really bullish about, I know some of the advice here has been starting small kind of and volunteering your time in different ways, because everyone needs to start somewhere. So Community Club has a mentorship program where you can sign up and be paired with someone who's been in the community space for a little bit longer. And that's kind of a nice way to dip your toe in, get an ally, have a resource, someone you can, bounce ideas off of. You could lead a lunch and learn within your organization, whether you want to talk about community or, something else that you're passionate about. I think it really starts with those homegrown efforts, and then you can sort of build upon that to some of these bigger, maybe a little more scary opportunities.
Fabulous. And do you have any ideas for us as women to support each other?
Oh my gosh. I love to like Kris Jenner all of these beautiful women in community as often as I can. I try to share their stuff on social media. And, you know, when I'm sharing someone's podcast or their blog post, I try to explain exactly what it was about what they said that resonated with me. So it's not just like, oh, Shayna Summers was on this podcast and it was amazing. It was like, no, I like really liked how she explained, you know, X, Y, and Z. And so I really try to do that whenever I can. And then writing recommendations for people on LinkedIn without them asking you to, I think is a wonderful gift if you're, you know, amped about someone. Yeah, I guess those are places to start.
I love it. What that is such a wonderful gift. Doing a LinkedIn drive-by without telling people. I love that. That would be so
easy
to have a LinkedIn review without asking. Wink, wink. Anybody out there? All right. So next question. Thank you so much, Erica. Those were great tips there. Lauren, I'm going to direct this one to you. This is from Nina. And Nina says, to community builders, any stories on how you tackle imposter syndrome and monetizing your community?
Darn button. Yeah, so for me, that was huge. I had never been paid for my services before. You know, as a blogger, I was very much in the space of like giving free advice, providing a lot of value for people online without being like necessarily compensated by the people who were receiving that value. And for me as imposter syndrome and like monetizing my services and things like that, I really had to hone in on like my time has value, you know, my experience has value, and get in the headspace of knowing that it's okay to accept compensation for the things that I'm putting out into the world, and that I don't have to just be like, I think as women specifically, we are very used to giving, and not necessarily receiving for what we're giving. And so realizing that, you know, you can't fill from an empty cup, and in order to provide value, you also have to be receiving in return. And so that really helped me like break through a lot of these like fears and doubts around monetizing my work and accepting compensation for what I was doing.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing. All right. So this question is for anyone who wants to answer. And Thea asks, I know it's Women's Month, hence this panel, but is there a reason imposter syndrome seems so much more common amongst competent, intelligent, and bold women? Woof. Yeah. Why is that? Anybody want to hop in and share their opinion as to why? Yes. Anika Lee, go.
I can hop in here because I grew up on this saying that young women should be seen and not heard. That was literally told to me by the, and I think it's not uncommon to find that women have that experience of just like being quieted. Like when you try to input into different topics, different conversations, you're just like looked at like, ooh, we have a saying back home in Trinidad, who she feels she is. Which is kind of like, who do you think you are? And like, I've internalized that so much. And I think that a lot of us have, like, you, before anybody can even ask you that question, you ask yourself that question. Who do I think I am? Who am I to show up in this way? And I think, for so many of us, it's unfortunate that as women, our opinions and our experiences, our lived experiences are kind of like undervalued. And we second guess ourselves so much because of that.
Love it. Thank you. Yes, very true. Does anyone have anything else to add? If not, I will go to the next question because we only have a few minutes here. But if you have anything to add, raise your hand and hop on. Anika Lee, I think you answered that one. Great. So moving on to the next question. Thank you guys for your amazing questions here. Next question I have. Oh, so Anthea has another question. She says, keen to hear your views on whether and how social structures that subtly pit women against each other or drive competition amongst women impacts imposter syndrome. Woo! we're getting deep here. Anybody want to touch that? Anyone have any insights, any opinions?
I mean, I can definitely add a little bit to it. I could talk about this all day, so I'll try to keep it, short. But yeah, women in general, we're brought up to be very competitive against other women, like always wanting to look the best or be the best or get the attention. And that, like, around us all the time, we are encouraged to be like the it girl, or the person that is like attracting all the attention and things like that. And obviously, if we're all being fed that same message, it makes sense that we are breeding this really competitive environment. And we're not told when we're younger to support each other, to love each other, that someone else's success doesn't like mean your failure, that someone else can succeed. And that just shows that you can too. It's like, you don't have to view someone else succeeding or crushing their goals, crushing their dreams, and see that as making you any less of a woman, less of a person. So I don't know, at least for me, like, I know that was very ingrained for me, like needing to be the best, always wanting to be like, top of my class or on the sports teams, like the one that was getting the awards. And yeah, it just breeds that really competitive environment. And it's hard to break out of that once you kind of have that mindset.
Yeah, but it's so liberating once you find communities of women that really want to see you shine, that are your cheerleaders, that lift you up. It really just, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. And I think it's also a game changer in how you behave. They teach you how to be better, how to be a better woman in this sisterhood. So thank you so much for that. I think with that, I think I'm going to pass it over to Valentina so we don't go over. Want to be mindful of our time, but please, everyone out there, give a virtual round of applause for this incredible panel here. Oh my gosh, ladies, thank you so much. This was incredible. I wish we had more time to keep going. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your opinions with us. This was really insightful. Please take a look at the chat box if you haven't. People have been cheering you guys on. So thank you so much. Valentina, passing it to you.
Yes, thank you. And big round of applause to Cepee, the moderating queen. She does so well that is why I find it hard to moderate a panel, because I just know I can't do it as good as her. So she is one to live up to. Before everyone heads out, I can see our numbers are dropping down. You will get a feedback form sent in your email probably straight after this. If you could just take a couple of minutes to give us a bit of feedback on this event. We really hope that this was valuable for you and you've met a friend and you're able to step away from this event and really make a change or implement something into your life. Please let us know in that feedback. Now, I'm just going to take 2 more minutes of your time to let you know about what's coming next. We already have our April event planned, and what we're doing is we're welcoming David Spinks, co-founder of CMX and VP at Bevy, to our chapter to talk about his new book, The Business of Belonging, which is being launched, I think, next week. Yeah, next week. And he is doing a stop here in Madrid to talk about that. And we're also launching a CMX Connect book club, which is being hosted by Jamie, who's based in Stockholm, Sweden. And he's going to be doing chats with different people, different authors about their books. So that's going to be on April 14th. And I will share the link here into the chat very quickly. Here it is. If you want to continue to be more social with us at CMX, if you're not already part of the CMX Hub Facebook group, if you're a Facebook user, there's over 10,000 community professionals from all over the world in there asking for advice and giving support to each other. If you're a Slack user, there's a CMX Slack workspace with lots of different channels about what's going on. There's also thousands, I say thousands, I'm going to say thousands, of CMX and Chill videos on the CMX YouTube channel. So if you want to catch up on CMX Summits, this video will be up there very shortly for those of you that want to watch the recording, plus lots of other things happening. And as I mentioned earlier, so many things going on. The CMX Spark in May event, which is the European Middle Eastern and African dedicated community conference is happening on April 20th. I'm going to be there, Cepee's going to be there. We've got a whole host of community professionals based in the region talking about what they do on a daily basis, and we really love for you to be there, so RSVP. All of this is completely free, so make sure you come and join us, and I think that's it for now. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. I'm not sure where Cepee is. I think she's there. I don't know. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Wednesday. I've lost count. I think it's Wine Wednesday, right? I mean, we're basically at the end of the week now. So grab that wine out, whatever time of day it is where you are. And we will see you again on April 14th, and then see you on April 20th for the big CMX Spark EMEA event. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks.